moving on, inspired by an optimistic perception of death.
So, a long time ago, when I was in high school, I had an aunt that was really old. She was in her 60s. And she had been through cancer 3 times previously in her life. She'd been through breast cancer, ovarian cancer, and I think she'd been through breast cancer again. And when she was 63, we found out she had brain cancer. And she was poor, she didn't have anything. She lived basically off a bread house, and she grew vegetables in her backyard. She had pigs from, donations and stuff like that. She didn't have anything. But she'd always come to our house with her bread truck that had a little Jesus sign on the back of it, and she would come and she'd go fish with and put us at the lake. And she would make us vegetable soup out of these canned goods. And so when we found out, that she had brain cancer, we were like, okay, well, she can't afford treatment, what are we going to do? And she was the bravest person I've ever met. I have so much respect for her even now. She just changed my life. We sat there and talked about, well, do you feel comfortable with what's going to happen? She was like, well, yeah, I feel comfortable with what's going to happen. I know where I'm going. I mean, it's not going to, I know where I'm going. I know what's going to happen. And she refused to take chemotherapy. The doctors told her that she would have maybe a month to live. She ended up living 2 more years than expected, and she functioned like a normal person. Hospice came every day, and they were surprised by the fact that she could walk around and move, and she was spunky and fanatic and funny and just wonderful and loving. And we had a conversation about dying, and she just told me, she's like, don't ever be afraid about dying. Don't ever be afraid. You know where you're going. God's got you. This is where we get to meet. We finally get to be with Him after our life. We've gone through this whole cycle of living. We finally come to a full understanding of what living's about, and we get to be with God finally. Just come to everything to full circle. So don't be afraid of, don't be scared. So with that, this comes to the question, as a Christian, how should I view death? And as a graphic designer, how should I push that message, or how should I influence others with my art and actually think about that topic? And then I'm going to show you a little bit about the process of making a mess. So Ecclesiastes says that the day of death is better than the day of birth. And in Matthew, it talks about not being afraid of dying with the body, but being afraid of dying with the soul. And the reason why is because, we're human, we're going to die. There are things that can happen to us, but who you are is who you are. You're always going to have God, you are always going to have your soul, you're always going to be you. And there's, nothing can change that, nothing can separate you from God's love. That's an everlasting thing. And then what was really interesting, I used to love the verse about Ecclesiastes because I always thought it was neat how birth and death are both associated with pain and suffering, but the promise of life afterwards. And so I just thought it was really cool about how we get to be reunited with someone we love, or reunited with this new beginning of love and life. So the process. So getting inspired. So when I was a kid, I really loved fables, and I loved dark concepts and good and evil and those kind of things, fiction and fantasy. And so for me, growing up, that was how I learned the difference between moral good and moral wrong and moral right, and how I conquered my fears and things like that. And so there's an artist called Mike, I'm probably going to call him Magnolia, but it's probably Magnolia, I can't say his last name, but he does the Hellboy comic books. And I love his artwork, and I love the common theme in the story about, this person who is typically meant to be a bad person is actually a good person and tries to overcome who they're supposed to be, or overcome the perception the world has on them to be ultimately good. And then, of course, so I went from being inspired by that idea and being inspired by my aunt, about how she lived life, and about death. I was like, well, I really want to personify death. I really want to think about death as a person, being a character, and how they're just an average part of life, and how they're, is it really as bad as we think it is? Or is it really just, something that we're just terrified because we don't really know what's going to happen? So then I went into writing a script, which I took Mr. Ross's screenwriting and script class, and that was great because we had to go through the whole character arc and learning how to tell a story and learning how to set up sceneries and really thinking about situations and how you want to prove a message or a point or get a theme across to somebody based on that story. Then I started drawing, and I looked at different characteristics of death, and so the fourth horseman, these different drawings, he's always wearing a cloak, or he's pulling a scythe around. That's just something that for hundreds of years, we don't really know where it originated from, but people just automatically, they call it the Grim Reaper, that's what they associate the image of death with. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't want him to carry a scythe around. I was like, it's too menacing. I don't really think of death as being menacing. I think of death as actually being really gentle. and, you know, kind of mournful in general because, you know, the world looks on them as a bad person, but in reality, they're just part of life, they're just doing their job. And they're really bringing you on to the next greatest thing. If you're a Christian, if you really believe in the love of God, and you really believe that you're close with Him, you get to be with God. You get to go finally meet Him. And so it's the next level, it's the next step. So then I went to proofing, which was really cool with After Effects and Photoshop. And that was so much fun. Photoshop is great, it's wonderful. And I learned all those skills in Ms. Shelton's class. Thank you, Ms. Shelton. And then I went into creating my mess, which was basically taking all of my drawings and concept art and putting it in panels and using the script that I had and putting them together in chronological order and trying to like make this wonderful design out of what I had. So storyboards. So over here on the far, probably your right, yeah, or your left, are my storyboards, or at least 2 of them that I've made. I've made a dozen of them. I just took what I thought was the best ones and showed them up here for you, and later you guys are going to see a couple more. Design, and like according to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, is just the process of taking elements like typography and images and just giving a purpose or giving a meaning, giving an impact. And so I basically did that with all these different principles of design, like emphasis, balance, alignment, contrast, movement, repetition, and white space. White space is a lot of fun, it's your friend. And then I looked at the artist that I like from his graphic novels, and I looked at how he uses contrast to make depth, and how he uses his white space, and how it has this serious undertone in his imagery. And I love the black and white with the serious undertone of my imagery in the depiction of the theme. So I thought that was really cool. And it was a really fun process, and it was really, really cool to learn. It just like, I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was going to be, but it was, and I really enjoyed it, and I want to keep doing it. So another challenge was getting into After Effects for me. I decided that I wanted to do the next step with doing these panels and like doing these little concept stories. I wanted to add narration, and I kind of wanted to like get it more, you know, in depth and make it more elaborate. So I decided to go ahead and get an After Effects. That was a lot of fun, so I had a few professors actually do some of the characters. And I just picked the best panels that I came up with. They're not in chronological order necessarily, they don't all make sense, they don't all follow along, but it's to help kind of like bring more imagery or make it more surreal. But I want to keep going and keep pursuing this. I want to keep doing it. It was really hard with finding out like where to put text at and where to put alignments and different things at, and like making it flow right or making it flow artistically, and like fitting it all into like one little panel, like fitting an emotion in or fitting just part of a story into one little space. It's really hard. It's a lot of fun. And so there's a quote that says, C.S. Lewis says, hardship prepares an ordinary person for the most extraordinary reasons, or most extraordinary destiny. And so to recap, kind of what I've talked to you about is I've kind of shown you what death should be like in Christians, like how we should perceive it, you know, based on like the fact that we believe that God exists, the fact that we believe He's always with us. He's constantly there, He's never ending. So when we die, are we really dying, or are we just transferring over to somewhere else and we're really just being with Him? And then kind of the routes I took as a designer, kind of just thinking outside the box. I'm like, okay, well I really want to take my passion of storytelling, my passion about this theme or this question, and I really want to take it and drive it home with what I do with design. And so that's the kind of approach I took. And then I kind of talked a little bit about my crazy process with that. And so now I'm going to show you a little bit of the footage from what I came up with. And it's not all going to make sense, but it was a lot of fun, and I really want to keep doing it, and I want to actually keep doing it to where it makes chronological sense. So.
Cut the lights.
You'll like where we are going. It's near the ocean. You'll finally be able to see it.
Where you met my mother.
In the
go to that hanging. Rooney's Wesley Hyde should be doing this.
What did you expect? You cheated.
You're not supposed to look at a man's cards.
What was I supposed to know? I've never seen somebody play cards.
That's because you're a pinto. Pretty soon you'll be in the custody of another dead man. A couple years ago, this woodcutter goes into the woods, starts cutting around burial ground. So one night folks start hearing terrible noises coming from the woods, and out walks this man covered in blood with this unnatural look in his eyes. Town was so scared they run him out. They said he had a daughter that lived out here. Folks say the awful noises was her screams as he cut her up. She's buried out here, you know. Same place we're burying your engine. But you didn't know that either, did you?
I know your breath stinks.
Ah, you mad canary? I hope he cooks you for supper, you feathery menace.
Why are you on my porch? Not over my damn roots, he ain't. Get that Red's corpse off my property. Shoot, Tim! Get back here, you yellow chicken liver! Ah!
You're lovely. Are you blind?
I suppose you could call it blindness. It's nice to know my appearance is somewhat pleasant. After a while, you're a bit less picky about the skin you wear in.
Pardon?
I'm not a spirit, angel, or anything from the garden. I've had eons of faces through the ages, but I am always the same. I am Jezreel, and I am death. To you, my dearest, I'm always afraid, though you will one day think me otherwise. I will stay until you wish me to go.
Oh, how he loves his little children. He gives them dreams, and he gave us wings. But if they dream, nothing can stop them from flying.
You're not welcome here.
How poetic. Death at life's side. You've got it bad. Like a dog with blood in its mouth. Once you get a taste of it, it makes you feral. Playing a righteous angel won't change your nature, Jezreel. Still, it's entertaining. You fell the moment you touched hands.
I envy his affection for them. What do you mean I fell?
Jezreel, my Jezreel, fruit of my loins, what a beautiful tragedy you are. To know little of eternity and nothing of humanity. Bittersweet, isn't it? You were there when he rose over me, too. You can't consume her. You've no dominion over her. I will have to. She'll come to me. They all do, at one time or another. Temptation is gentle. All it takes is a whisper and a kiss on your part. I just like to watch the show. Amusing. Death trying to cast out the devil. Patience is a virtue, my pretty. Now I lay you down to sleep. Your precious soul I hope to keep. The angels watch you through the night, unable to keep you from my side. Should you die before you wake, your lovely soul I will surely take.
So that's the end of the video. And I know it didn't make hardly any sense at all. And it was really slow. But these are the wonderful actors that were in it. Dr. Pipkin played Jezreel. Dr. Huddleston actually played Lucifer, who was that last character that was kind of creepy. Ross actually played Little Creek, who was the Indian that said run. And I did Indigo because there's nobody else to do it at the moment. But, and Dr. Gilmore actually got to play the lawyer. So it's a jumbled up mess, but I really want to keep going and I really want to make it fit in chronological order. I'm not a DMP major. I want to keep learning and getting better at After Effects. And I want to get it to a point where I can make step-by-step portions and make a story or make a preview of a story even better. But I'm learning and I love it and I want to keep going after this idea. So I'm ready for your questions. Josiah.
Would you prefer to go toward the printed kind of comic route, or would you prefer to go towards animating these drawings?
Right now, I really like the idea of the printed version. But, I don't know, we'll just see. It just depends on how good I get over time.
I don't know anything about this at all. So, did you draw them on a sketch pad and then transfer them over, through copy?
Yeah, so my process was actually, I drew them in my sketchbook, I took them to a scanner, I put them in the scanner, and then I took them to Photoshop and I cleaned them up and proofed them, and then I put drop shadows and played with the contrast to kind of get emphasis and moved stuff around, and I added typography in Photoshop, and then I went into After Effects and started putting things together in a different order and adding sound.
Can I ask how long that process was?
Well, I haven't slept in 48 hours, so After Effects for 2 days. The drawings alone, I think my overall hours, for this senior project, probably made it to about 200 just for drawing. But I enjoyed every second of it. Any other questions?
If you had one more week to do this, what would you have done differently?
I want another year. But if I had one more week, I probably would have changed the panels I did. I probably would have gone back and done better chronological order and probably did a little bit better with my narration and actually spent more time in After Effects than what I did. So, yes. Goody?
That's that picture right there kind of sparked this question, but have you ever thought of tattoo artistry?
I did, but I'm scared of needles.
All right, thank you so much, Caitlin. All right, next we have Blair Springhall. We're gonna just keep right on going so we don't get behind, guys. So Blair did some digital illustrations. If you guys don't know Blair, he's from Scotland, and this is based on, hey guys, this is based on some landmarks from Scotland and the history behind them and why they're important to him. So let's give Blair our full attention.
I might need you to let us know where the chairs are.
3 chairs over here. 5 chairs.
You got the clicker? Yeah. Okay. I'll go ahead and fire it up.